You're listening to the Scotty C and Rice Show. I'm Scotty C.
I'm Ryan Masuda.
On today's show, we recap last night's college football playoff, talk a little NBA, maybe even some NFL. I guess we'll talk about the holidays too, because those happened. How we doing today, buddy?
I'm better than I was on Tuesday, and we got a lot to talk about. I feel like this is the day that you have been waiting for many a moons. So how, how are you doing, Scott?
I'm doing okay, man. I'm doing okay. I mean, yesterday's results led to my two most hated teams I've ever hated being in the first ever college football final. So one of them is going to end up with a national title. And but beyond that, I'm feeling pretty good because finally everyone now realizes that the SEC is just not the best conference because they got fucking worked all bowl season.
Hey now, man, the SEC East is doing pretty good in their bowls. They came to play in our bowls in the postseason.
Yeah, it's kind of weird what a strange little role reversal it's been.
There's a part of me that was thinking, if we had any sort of preparation or, we did any sort of legitimate work for this show, that you would come in with sort of like a Dan Le Batard, Poppy-esque style rant, similar to the ones that they did following the Heat's postseason, or the one that Poppy did most recently, which was after the Cavaliers lost on Christmas to the Heat, which was pretty fantastic. I don't know if you've had a chance to hear that.
No, I unfortunately missed that one. I'm sure that's genius, though.
Hey, LeBron, how many free throws did you miss last night? Not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6, not 7.
Right? Yeah. So the SEC West, has gone 2-5 in their bowl games.
The SEC West has gone 2-5. The Mississippi schools were pretty much the games that weren't close. Obviously, TCU took Ole Miss out to the woodshed. That one wasn't really surprising. I think both of us liked how TCU was coming into the game. Didn't really trust old Bad Bo, as you have said so many times on this show. Mississippi State, the final score looked closer than it really was. Georgia Tech really controlled that game throughout. And then you had, two coin flip games in Auburn and Wisconsin and LSU and Notre Dame. And then there was last night in the Sugar Bowl where
But those games had no right being coin flip games, according, to the superiority of the SEC.
Well, there's no reason the LSU Notre Dame game should have been a coin flip. And when you have a team in Wisconsin that is almost as anemic throwing the ball as LSU, you would think that Auburn should have gone in and handled that game, especially how one-dimensional Wisconsin is. Now, I did want to bring up, because I should have seen this coming, and it's really my fault for not picking up on this earlier. You put the Clifford stink all over the SEC this year because you've never ever made an admission that the SEC West or the SEC in general was the best conference, and then you come out and say that, and then this happens. So I commend you because I didn't catch that, and I'm very, very impressed, Scott.
Well, they did look like the best for a while, but I think even the last couple weeks of the season, I felt like that storyline was kind of falling apart a little bit. I mean, I would have easily put Oregon #1 over Alabama based off the end of the year.
We both had Oregon #1.
Yeah, exactly. And then just to see, especially that TCU game was especially telling. That the SEC beats up on its lower tiered schools, and just hasn't looked that good against the rest of the nation, unlike the Pac-12, which has looked fantastic. May I point out, no big deal. Arizona had a tough loss to Boise State, who always comes to play especially at the Fiesta Bowl. I mean, they even ran the Statue of Liberty play again. Fucking assholes. Like, well, this worked once here. Let's try it again, and it worked, and it somehow worked. And then a new Solomon freshman quarterback making an epic mistake to end that game. I would still pick Arizona to win that game 9 times out of 10 because they really just killed themselves.
Well, I hope you didn't bet that Florida plane ticket on Arizona, like
Yeah.
like we talked about.
No, thank God I didn't. I just
But
continue to lose money on Bulls. I've been on the wrong side of everything. It's been so far. I've been doing like over unders and all this sort of stuff, and I just have not been right once.
well, last night when Alabama was up, what was it, 24-6, and I've started doing a little bit of the live betting, and the one that I got on because it seemed just so outrageous was the live line was Alabama, but it was only Alabama 7.5. I'm like, whoa, there's something's not right here. Something's weird. I didn't expect it to go the way that it did, but there was definitely something up there in New Orleans. And aside from January 9th, 2012, Nick Saban he's defeated in the Sugar Bowl. He's 0-3. So it's kind of an interesting place that everyone, including myself, remembers the national title game against LSU. But outside of that, New Orleans has not been kind to Saban. But you mentioned how, early on it looked like the SEC West was one of the better teams. And, going into the Notre Dame game, the SEC West was 30-0 against non-conference opponents, and that included the Boise State team that beat Arizona. It included Memphis, who won their bowl game. And it also included Kansas State, who's about to match up with UCLA. So it's definitely, I think it should definitely quiet some of the noise. And while I think there's always been a great argument that the top teams in the Pac-12 can match up very well with the top teams in the SEC, I'm still not ready to say, okay, like the Big Ten's superior to the SEC. Okay, the ACC is superior to the SEC. Like I'm not ready to go there just yet because, how much stock do you put in bowl season? Like, is it a really big metric for you in terms of the strength of the leagues?
Well, no, it's kind of crazy season, man, because everyone kind of loses coaches here or there, and you have all that time to prepare for a one-off, and literally anything can happen. And I definitely wouldn't put the Big Ten or the ACC above the SEC. I think top to bottom, the Pac-12 now is clearly the best conference. So, us West Coast elitists, not only are we better at food, drink, also football apparently. So it's pretty nice.
Well, at least you didn't mention women, Scott. Why is that?
I live in a city of sixes.
Well, we'll see. We'll see how UCLA does against Kansas State. I think one of the things that a lot of people going into this year, a lot of the narrative was there's a lot of quarterback turnover that's happening in the SEC, and I think the Pac-12 is going to face a bit more quarterback turnover this next year, after this season. So I think it'll be interesting to see what happens next year. You mentioned a new Solomon will be back, but Oregon will be breaking in a new starter. Cody Kessler, who had another great showing in his bowl game.
Yeah, Oregon's next starter will be Braxton Miller.
Cody Kessler, who, he could go pro. So you might have USC, UCLA, and Oregon breaking in new starters. And hey, I heard even Kevin Hogan had sent his a request for the NFL Draft Advisory Board. So there's always the possibility of that. Not to mention your guys up at Oregon State.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of turnover at quarterback. I think though, and I'd have to look back to see exactly, how this corresponded with the rise of the SEC. Is now you're giving all these Pac-12 coaches who have come in these last few years a few more rounds. They've had a few rounds of recruiting and have really built their programs up. If you just look at the coaches like top to bottom in the Pac-12 now, it's a really strong roster of coaches. And I wonder now, with the Big Ten adding Harbaugh, James Franklin last year, Urban Meyer the past couple of years, I wonder if the Big Ten will be seeing a resurgence in these next couple of years as well.
Well, and that's what it comes down to, really, is coaching. And even, Maryland with Edsall. I mean, there is a lot of quality coaches in the Big Ten that have a lot of Southern roots. And I think one of the things that you can take away from this season with the SEC is that you've been so used to seeing these defensive linemen that are just 6'5", 330, that can run, 5'1", 5'2" in the 40, that are just quick and they're agile. You didn't see that this year. The defensive lines in the SEC were not what they have been. I mean, LSU was number one in defense in the SEC, and any time there was any sort of quarterback that remotely resembled Tim Tebow, we got absolutely shredded. I mean, Malik Zaire had done really nothing up until this point. LSU couldn't stop him. And so you look at a lot of these defensive lines that have always been the trademark of the SEC, and they just weren't there this year. And it got kind of masked and kind of hidden, but you saw in that Auburn-Alabama game, Alabama could be thrown on, and that's kind of been a theme to how to beat them, is if you can throw on them, you can beat them. And that never used to be the case, but I definitely think, along with the quarterback attrition, the defensive lines in this conference this year were not what they have been in the past. And you saw that happen where, Auburn got pushed around by Wisconsin's big line. And, I mean, Ole Miss, yeah, they had a couple of injuries on defense, and they weren't full strength. But they got absolutely dominated by 2- and 3-star guys.
Yeah. No, I mean, and, it is fair to point out that the SEC's defensive lines were weak because they're all starting in the NFL right now. A lot of SEC defensive linemen in the NFL. So, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. It'll be interesting, to see how they rebound, going forward. Because the worst part is you can almost predict, the backlash of the polls to start next year and how everyone will be discounting them and blah, 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 blah.
So what did you think about the way Florida State's 29-game winning streak ended? Because let's start with that one. I think you and I are unique in the fact that we are guys who have spent a lot of our lives in Florida who absolutely cannot stand the Oregon Ducks. And we're probably some of the few Floridians who did not go to Florida State who were rooting very hard for the Seminoles last night. So what were your thoughts on that game?
Well, quick side, little known fact, I've now lived on the West Coast longer than I lived in Florida. So, it's crazy to think about. But it was especially hilarious reading Facebook and all my FSU friends just so, I could feel the annoyance with how the Duck style of play is and the lack of calls. I mean, because Oregon literally holds on every play. So it's just funny reading that because they have no experience with the Ducks, unlike myself. And Florida State did everything you cannot do against Oregon if you want to beat them. You cannot kick field goals and you cannot turn the ball over more than once or twice. And when you get down,
and when Marcus Mariota throws you an interception, you got to squeeze it. Can't drop it.
Got to catch it. They gave you one. He gave you one. And they should have had another at minimum. And when you get in the red zone numerous times in the first half and you come away with 6 points, not going to cut it, dudes. Oregon's going to score touchdowns at some point, and you just need to jump on them while you can to stay in it, And Florida State failed to do that. And, eventually Oregon opened the game up, which is what they do if you're not scoring, So... as that game, played out, it became so obvious. I've watched it so many times now. That's just what Oregon does. If you kick field goals and turn the ball over, they're going to blow you out. It's not even going to be close. And FSU just fell apart, man. They hadn't, because this is all the teams they fell behind, this year. We've talked about this numerous times at this point, but just didn't have the offensive firepower to pull away. And obviously Oregon did, and they didn't know how to react. And the defense, was lost. I haven't seen a team with that much preparation time versus Oregon look that lost in a long time. So they were ill prepared for what they were seeing out there.
That was also the biggest takeaway for me because when in the first quarter, my biggest takeaway was like Marcus Mariota was missing throws, but the throws he was missing, the receivers were wide open. And I turned to my wife and I just said to her, I'm like, he's gonna hit those. He's not gonna miss those throws all game. And the troubling sign about that is that these guys, I mean, there's not someone within 3-4 yards of them. I mean, they are wide open. So eventually Mariota's going to settle down, and these completions are going to be going for big gains. And on the flip side of it, the only route that was open to Jameis was either Carlos Williams or Dalvin Cook on that little flare out across the middle. And that was the only thing he had. Every other completion to a receiver, there was 2 or 3 ducks around him. And, I mean, Jameis, to his credit, was fitting the ball in extremely tight windows, but his receivers dropped the number of catches because, I mean, they had Oregon defenders draped all over him. And that zone defense that Oregon ran, I mean, they basically conceded the running back flare-out, and everything else, they made Jameis just fit into just these such tight windows. And completely shut down Rashard Green and Nick O'Leary. I mean, Nick O'Leary with the hamstring pregame, but I mean, even still, I don't think he really. Let me just put it this way.
Open. Nick O'Leary wasn't athletic enough to get open against Oregon, straight up.
No, and Oregon, I think, I mean, at least at this point, you and I have both questioned their physical toughness just due to the teams. And it's not that we don't think that they're physical. It's just that when they run into teams that are built on smash-mouth football, they've had problems, and I think it's foolish to ignore that. But last night the Noles had first and goal from the 2, and they couldn't punch it in. Jameis gets stuffed on an option keeper, and right there you're just thinking like, holy crap! Like Oregon is out physicaling Florida State, and as you said, Florida State had a month to prepare, and that was the defense they threw on the field. I mean, that was bad. I mean, you can get 5 turnovers in 18 minutes is crazy. You could play that game 10 times and only see that once. But all the credit in the world to the way Oregon defended them because they completely shut down Florida State's receivers, and I did not think that would be possible.
No, especially, I mean, they didn't even have their best corner who got hurt during bowl practices.
They didn't have their best corner. They lost their best receiver on the first play of the game. I mean, their big tight end was banged up. Like Oregon, just as you said though, you can't turn the ball over against them. And those fumbles from Dalvin Cook, man, and it's such a shame to see because he was really one of the main things keeping them in that game last night. I mean, he was running hard. The difference between him and Carlos Williams is just so polar opposite. And so I felt bad for the kid because he's really helped spark Florida State to the point that they were at. But, man, as you said, though, you just can't turn it over against them.
No. No turnovers, no field goals. Otherwise, you're going to lose to Oregon, straight up. And, And especially, going back to the physicality of it, Florida State has a very athletic D-line, not the biggest D-line in the world. And against Oregon is you need those road graders in the middle to eat up linemen, and Florida State just wasn't able to do that. And then with Oregon, and they're just back-breaking third down conversions that just drive the will out of a defense. Because it's so crazy, they'll get a fucking super frustrating third down conversion and then score within a play or two because the defense is just checked out mentally. So, it was dominant performance by Oregon. Florida State had a great run. This has to be Jameis's last game in college. No way he comes back. And you know what? I wasn't unimpressed with Jameis yesterday. I actually, with what he was given, some of the throws he made, he made some really high quality, tight window throws, and it'll be interesting to see him and Mariota compete going forward.
No, those two are going to be forever linked. And Winston, there were some throws last night that I mean, my jaw was on the floor just in terms of the anticipation and the ball placement and having to throw the ball between like two Oregon defenders just to get it to your man. I mean, he definitely left it all out there on the field and did his best. But as you said, I mean, that for the first strip on Dalvin Cook, I don't even think anyone knew it was a fumble. He just went and took it away from him.
Yeah.
And I credit to Jameis. A lot is made about him, but the fact that he was one of the few players that did stay and shake hands with the Oregon players towards the end. But that was nice to see, despite the fact that some of the Oregon players decided to do a chant at Jameis's expense.
Oh, I mean, we got to talk about it. So the Oregon players, and this is on Deadspin. I'm sure it's many other places now as well. Oregon players did the Florida State chant, except switching out with the words "no" means no, and it's just genius. I think it's by far the smartest thing any Oregon player has ever done in his entire life or come up with. So, kudos, guys, kudos.
What did you make? And obviously, this rank will be enough to go after some of the people who are doing this, who surprisingly enough are not alums of the schools that they claim to be fans of, but just the sheer amount of people who either are Florida fans, who went to Florida, are Miami fans, or even one person who claims to be a Florida and an Auburn fan. I'm not quite sure how that works. I don't like to spend that much time thinking about it. But like these people who are just, go Ducks, go Ducks, go Ducks. And I just sit there and think to myself, if your team's playing in Shreveport, Birmingham, hey, even throw my team in there, Nashville, I don't really think you got much room to be going ham on social media about a team that was in the Rose or the Sugar Bowl, especially if you didn't get your degree from that institution.
I am with you. If I had seen any of my friends in Florida putting Go Ducks stuff up, I instantly would have defriended them on Facebook. Instantly. And I probably would have sent them a nasty text.
Yeah. My favorite is the one who, I'm a Florida fan, but like 2 weeks ago, I'm just throwing up a bunch of like War Damn Eagle shit, and today I'm just all about whoever plays FSU, and I'm just like, man, it must have been exhausting buying that Louisville and that Boston College and that Georgia Tech and that North Carolina. Like, it must have been exhausting buying all those jerseys.
Yeah.
Oh, where'd you go to school? PBCC? All right.
I'm guessing that person isn't a listener.
They are obviously not a listener. But, I mean, it's like, it's those types of people where they became Florida fans because of Tebow, and now all of a sudden it's just like, go Ducks! Like, yeah, go away.
Yeah, seriously. No one ever better say go Ducks to me in the state of Florida. I swear to God, I will slap you down. I dare you to try it. I fucking dare you. Sorry for swearing. Anyways.
That's all right. That's the first of a mini rant. We might get to my LSU rant here later, but we got more important things to discuss right now. Ohio State, Alabama.
Yeah, man. Alabama was doing everything right to start. And then, Ohio State, showed a lot of will. They got the best. I will put any amount of money on this. They have the best third-string quarterback in the country. That's not a competition. I don't care who anyone else will try and trot out at me. That guy's the best third-string quarterback in the country, and I hope he transfers to Michigan.
Hey, man, we already got the bidding in on their fourth-string walk-on for LSU.
So, and yeah, man, they were making great throws. They threw early on early downs a lot, which is a great thing to do against Alabama because Alabama like kind of flipped from Florida State. Not the most athletic D line, but massive, big guys. But they're not great pass rushers, especially on early downs. Um, and they're road raiders. And Ohio State didn't try to force the issue. They threw early, and then they slip a run in there, which really helped open up the run game a whole bunch instead of trying to like force the run 7,000 times against a team that will eat that up. Yeah, Ohio State just played really, really well. They got the stops they needed, a couple big picks. Blake Sims definitely did not play his best game, but I also felt like they were really like Lane Kiffin, the way he was calling that game. He was really holding the reins in for some reason. I felt like they were running way more like quarterback draws and that sort of stuff than I watched them previously do, and I just felt like they could have opened up the offense a little bit more.
Well, let's talk about some of Lane Kiffin's play calling because there was a couple of drives there that ended in Blake Sims interceptions in the red zone where like he's coming out and they're throwing on three straight plays. Like, why are you not giving the ball to Derrick Henry? Like Derrick Henry was having phenomenal success in the first half, and it was almost like Leonard Fournette in the LSU Notre Dame game where he rips off that 89-yard touchdown run, touches the ball 4 times afterwards. You're just kind of sitting there thinking, like, am I missing something? Like, did Derrick Henry just make a pass at Lane Kiffin's wife at halftime? Like, what's going on here? Why is he not getting the ball?
Right.
I mean, they showed the discrepancy between Amari Cooper and the Tide's second best receiver. I mean, anytime you have a gap of 81 receptions between your number 1 and number 2 receiving threats, like it was pretty clear who Ohio State needed to contain. And I mean, Amari Cooper, 9 catches, but only 72 yards. He didn't do anything to really break the game open.
No.
It seemed like Alabama's big strength in that game, and we had talked about it going in, was just Ohio State's weakness this year has been their run defense. Alabama had success early with Derrick Henry and T.J. Yeldon, and they just went away from it. And it seemed like they just played right into Ohio State's hands.
Yeah, especially when you're up 21-6. Like, why, at that point forward, why aren't you just, trying to beat them into submission? So, yeah, it was strange, man. I didn't understand the rhythm that Lane Kiffin was in with the play calling at all.
And Urban Meyer actually got bailed out there because it's amazing, like that fine line that you can walk when you're a coach. Because that last drive, he's got Cardell Jones throwing and it's an incomplete. Then they run it. Alabama takes the timeout, and then Cardell Jones runs around and gets sacked, and basically allowed Alabama to have an extra timeout in their pocket. And of course, apparently clock management issues are not just. They're not just a Les Miles problem. Apparently, Nick Saban and Lane Kiffin can have them too.
Yeah, have you ever seen a more lackadaisical minute of football in your life with a drive that started with a minute 30?
The only one that can come close is the LSU-Tennessee game, 2010, where we fortunately got an untimed down that we were able to score on because Tennessee had 14 guys on the field. But no, it just blew my mind how, as you said, I mean, lackadaisical, I think, is really the only word for it. And, credit to Ohio State, they mixed it up. Devin Smith took the top off their defense and exploited what's been a big weakness for Alabama all year. And Ezekiel Elliott, man, that guy, like, you average 11 yards a touch against Alabama's defense. Kudos to you, man. Like, you deserve a night out in New Orleans.
Yeah, man, they played great. But like I said, they did them a big favor by throwing early on early downs. And I think that really opened up the rest of the run game for them.
So now, before we get to discussing the final, where does this leave us with Michigan State? They didn't really beat anyone until they beat Baylor, but their only 2 losses are to the 2 teams playing for the national title.
Oh, man, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, man, Michigan State is a very solid team. They got their quarterback coming back next year. I really hope that they enjoyed their big win against Baylor, because now with Harbaugh in the house, your shit's done, son. You're going down. No more love. You guys aren't going to be any good. Harbaugh's going to lock down Michigan. We're going to start getting those Ohio kids again. So just enjoy it. Enjoy it. Maybe he got this one last season, but that's it. Hate the Spartans, but they're really good. They had a great season.
No, and I mean, one of the best bowl games all year. I mean, they were down 20 in the fourth quarter, and I thought when Bryce Petty completed that pass inside the Michigan State 15, only for it to be brought back because of offensive face mask. Like, you never see that called. You never ever see that called. Jim Delaney, what are you? Where are your hand? What are you into, man?
Dude, Jim Delaney owns everyone, I feel like. He single-handedly got Penn State taken off sanctions. Like, I don't know if a lot of people realize that, but that was all Jim Delaney. So, powerful dude.
But no, if I'm a Baylor fan, offensive face mask. Whew, making that call in that spot, like bold call. But Michigan still had to block the field goal. They still had to score, and as you and I were both texting about, they still had to blow up Baylor's kicker just because.
Oh my God! Yes, I forgot about that for a second. Oh, dude, my house erupted in laughter. That guy we thought he was dead. He even had to tweet out, "I'm not dead." So good. Everyone, go watch that immediately if you haven't seen it. He was so eager. He was like the first one, attacking too. It's just like, where are you going, bro? And then he sits up for a second and night. Oh, dude, crazy.
I felt bad because I did laugh at it, and then he kind of crumpled in that, like, I might have a concussion and I probably don't know where I am. And then once you reassured me that you guys were laughing at it, I said, okay, well, you know what, at least I got some good company here.
Yeah, right? Oh, man, that was brutal. So Michigan State's only 2 losses against teams in the final. TCU absolutely destroyed in their bowl game. We could throw Baylor because they lost to Michigan State, but do we really want to see those teams as part of the playoff, though?
I think if you go anywhere beyond 6, it's just completely diluted. And the other thing that makes me hesitate from wanting to go to 6 is just because you're asking these kids who aren't paid to tack on 2 extra games. And these kids aren't getting, they're not getting paid. Some schools are going to provide the cost of attendance, but that's nowhere near enough for a lot of the money that these kids are making. And if you go to 6, the top 2 teams get a bye. You can get every major conference, and you can get one at large if you want to do it that, or you can just do the top 6 teams. If you did the top 6 teams this year, you got the Final 4, and then you have TCU, or you have Baylor and TCU.
Yeah.
I don't hate it, but I'm content with 4. I think if you go anything beyond 6, you're just really watering down the product, and even outside of 4 at this point, TCU, they smashed Ole Miss. Great, Ole Miss it's debatable how good of a football team they were once they lost Denzel Kumdichi and Laquan Treadwell.
Yeah, no, without a doubt, they lost 2 of their best players, especially Treadwell. That team really changed when Treadwell went down.
Well, let's talk about your 2 most hated teams, 2 that are not favorites of mine either. I don't think we have many Oregon and Ohio State fans who listen to this, but if they do, we're going to try to be as straightforward and objective as we can. So.
Is there a line out yet?
Oregon -7. The over/under is at 70.5.
Oregon's -7?
Yep.
Taking it. I think Oregon absolutely runs all over them. And I don't see I don't see any way that Ohio State's able to keep up with Oregon in this game. I just don't. I think Alabama would have been the worst matchup for them, just because of the size of that D line. The 2 D tackles, or the rotation of D tackles. Not like they're the most athletic guys in the world, or they'd be getting a lot of pressure, but they just take up space, and Oregon thrives on having space. Yeah, I just don't see Ohio State having a shot.
It's hard to, I mean, it's hard to really argue given how impressive Oregon was. The only thing that I think can, if you're an Ohio State fan, that you really try to hang your hat on is who beat the better team. And I think there's a pretty legitimate argument that Ohio State beat the better team. Florida State, both you and I have been extremely stubborn on them. We both have always trotted out that, they're going to have the best player on the field. He's going to be able to bring them back. And we thought the defense would figure it out eventually. And I mean, this is a team that just couldn't get any pressure on the quarterback all year, and we thought they would eventually figure it out, and they just didn't. And I think there's a lot of confidence Ohio State can gain from that Alabama game, but, matchup-wise, man, it's hard for me to see Ohio State matching up for 4 quarters with the space that the receivers for Oregon can create. I mean, if you're going to play man on them, they're just going to pick you to death with the formations, or they run 3 on top of each other. They got enough running backs where they can continue to go at you, and as long as Mark Helfrich doesn't get away from the running game and goes Lane Kiffin on them, yeah, you're right. I'm with you. I like Oregon at the 7. I'm kind of inclined to look at the under, but I don't have the stones to take it.
Yeah. Yeah, you said what, 70.5? Sorry. Yeah. Yeah, oof. Oh, no, man.
That's a lot of points.
A lot of points. You think Ohio State could get a bunch of garbage points, just airing the ball out towards the end. I don't know. It's going to be a crazy game. I don't mean to, discount Ohio State, too much. And I would actually prefer it if Ohio State won, which is weird. But that's just a weird thing to say. Ugh. I don't want either team to win. I want there to be a catastrophe where no one gets hurt, but the game can't be played forever.
So are you going to post on Facebook a big Buckeye? Go Bucks!
No, I will not. I can't do with the Ducks winning a national title. I just can't do it. So I hope Ohio State shows up to play, but, Oregon's good, man. They look really good. I think they finally put it all together, and they have a really good shot to blow out Ohio State.
And one of the advantages both you and I gave to Florida State was they had a month to prepare, and Ohio State gets a week. That's not a sufficient amount of time to heal up from a body blow game like Alabama, where you're just getting hit, and then you have to go and try to figure out this team that's going to run a play every 20 seconds on you.
Yeah, possibly 2 plays. Yeah, man. Yeah, Oregon just puts you in bad positions, and I'll repeat myself for the 10th millionth time. They can't kick field goals, and you can't turn the ball over. If Ohio State doesn't do those 2 things, they could be in this game. But I find it hard to believe that they'll be able to keep up with them the entire time.
Well, yeah, I think we're both in the same boat on that one.
I can't believe the Ducks and Buckeyes are playing for the first ever college football playoff national title. You couldn't dream of a more nightmare scenario for me than this being the case.
Yeah, it's a shame that you probably should have saved the Clifford Sting for those 2 instead of the SEC, man.
Man, I was like, I don't care if Alabama wins a 4th out of 6 years, whatever the hell it would have been. I don't deal with those people. I'm like, Rye deals with those people. I don't fucking deal with those people.
Oh, yeah.
Now if Oregon wins, I'll be that much more hesitant to talk shit to a Duck fan. Because they'll just be like, Natty, and I'm like, man.
So then you will.
Dicks, whoop, whoop.
So you will absolutely then be moving back to Florida if Oregon wins the national title.
Right? Have to do something.
Yeah. I got a couple of texts from some buddies of mine from Flagler yesterday, and they're Florida fans. One of them went to Flagler. I'm not sure where the other one went, but they're wearing these Oregon Duck shirts. And I'm like, well, I'm like, do you guys have your Alabama ones ready for the second one just to make sure so you can, chant SEC, SEC? Like, what are you doing? Where's the receiver gloves? You forgot your Oregon receiver gloves.
I'm sorry, I can't tell you you're rooting for. You're not fucking doing a big O and screaming O at me. Douchebags.
I've never seen more men over the age of 35 wearing jerseys and receiver gloves.
Ever, right? Ever. Your entire life. Anywhere on the planet.
No, and they all have gin bellies. Like, like they're not in shape. They all have this just like rock hard gin belly where I feel like if I poke it, my hand will break.
Oh, goddamn Ducks. I hate them. I hate them so much. Yeah, and plus I didn't go to Michigan, so Ohio State. Come on, man, you got this. You got this.
Well, let's discuss the fandom thing here because I think something that eats in both of our crawls, and I don't know, we might be in the minority on this, but that hasn't stopped me before. But I really do feel that unless you went to a university or like a very immediate part of your family has either worked for a university, has attended a university, or has like been involved some way.
Right. Or like you just grew up in that environment, like
Right, like
that would all contribute to
like my cousin's wife would not make me a fan of a school. That is not a good reason. And growing up an hour and a half away from Gainesville is not a good reason to be a Florida fan. Like there's got to be some intimate connection because I really do feel like you don't get that real love for a school unless you go there and you go through the trials and tribulations. You create these lifetime memories with friends, and you're a part of the entire experience. I don't know. It makes me sound like a bit of a I'm the guy who's judging fandom, but if you go to a school, you know what I'm talking about. If you're an alumni of an institution, you know what I'm talking about. And it bothers you when there's people who claim to be fans of something that are just like switching it up depending on who their quote-unquote rival is playing. Because to me, like, yeah, did it make me happy Alabama lost? Sure. But at the end of the day, my team's playing in Nashville with a quarterback who's the least efficient quarterback of every single Division I player in the country. Like, so the whole thing, it only goes so far, and I don't know, man. It just cracks me up because especially in Florida, you see so much of it with the Miami fans and things like that. But I just, if you haven't gone there and really your only connection is you drove through the town once when you were like 7, or you like the uniforms, or you just really had a crush on Tim Tebow, I'm sorry, like I can't take you seriously.
Hey, man, I definitely don't disagree with you. And, because seriously, no one loved Michigan athletics more than I did growing up. But I went to Oregon State. And, like, I care way more about Oregon State than I care about Michigan. So.
And you have a legitimate reason to care about Michigan. You have a family connection, and I mean, like you don't have to go into the details about it, but
I grew up, I grew up lived in Ann Arbor, Michigan athletics, and Michigan were a big part of the environment there and a massive part of my life. But I don't feel that same connection as I do now with Oregon State.
Right. And I always tell people, I'm like, if Flagler was to ever get a football team and Flagler squared off against LSU, dude, I would be Flaglered out. I love LSU. I got an extra year and a half out of it because I didn't want to leave. But at the end of the day, man, like that place where you spent, 4 years and that time just developing who you are, you can't describe it to someone who's just watched it from afar and just decided, oh, I like this team. Okay. Oh, but by the way, if they're if their rival's playing someone else, we're damn Eagle.
War War Eagle Tiger.
Don't forget the Plainsmen. They're the Plainsmen originally, but they've just had some trouble deciding. That's tough.
So that's awesome. Why don't they just ditch the tiger? Why are they ditching the tiger and just go War Eagle? Like, why not? Like what is stopping them?
I don't know, and I feel bad every time I see Missouri's and Auburn's like the Tiger mascots on the sideline. Like, it really looks like there's a little bit of. I mean, tiger populations are dwindling, and you got to worry about inbreeding. And I feel like the mascots for Missouri and Auburn reflect this. Like Mike's goofy looking. Mike the Tiger's goofy looking, but we also have a real one, and he's not so goofy looking. If you tell him as such, you're on your own, man. I can't help you there. But
If the tiger take you, you go with the tiger.
yeah, and there has actually been a new theory that's been about because Mike the Tiger, they try to get him to come to home games at LSU, but I think this year, after watching Mettenberger, Beckham, and Landry for the past 2 years, the reason he didn't come to any home games this year is like, I'm not trying to watch that crap. I ain't doing it.
He's like, these guys are not worth my time. Call me when we get an NFL quarterback.
He's like, I'd rather sit here and scratch myself against my log than go in there and watch run, punt, run, pass, punt.
Dude, it's really bad. But like, how does Ohio State have 3 quarterbacks that good?
I mean, Urban, you can say what you want about him. I know he's not either one of our favorite coaches, but this is a guy that convinced the San Francisco 49ers to take Alex Smith at number 1 over Aaron Rodgers. And as much play as Josh McDaniels gets, Urban Meyer convinced him to take Tim Tebow in the first round. So, like, Urban's got to be doing something right. I mean, he didn't do too well with John Brantley, but hey, man, I mean, he's gotten 2 option quarterbacks taken in the first round. So
craziness. It's craziness.
It makes me sad inside that I had to watch what I had to watch all year.
Yeah. Well, thankfully, there's always next year, unless you die. So.
Yeah, my wife tried to give me a little silver line. She's like, look, just look at it like this. Like, this is the last time this year that you get to bitch about Anthony Jennings. And I was like, you're right. I should make the most of it.
I'm going to take full advantage then. It's a 3-hour hate fest.
Oh, God.
Welcome to the haters ball.
And to lose to my least favorite coach in the world, Brian Kelly. Like, just the guy who it's never his fault. Like, oh, I sent a student up into a video tower in like 55-mile-an-hour winds. It blew over. He died. Not my fault.
So criminal.
He's not a good person.
No, you're a bad person, Brian Kelly.
Oh, God.
So, well, I guess we got, one more college football game to talk about this season. So, looking forward to it. I hope it's a good game. I don't think I'm going to watch it, actually. But, we'll see how it all plays out.
No, that's got to be tough when you're rooting for, a catastrophe where no one gets hurt and they can never finish the game.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, I don't even know what that would be.
So basically what's going to need to happen is you and Scott Kaplan are going to need to go plan some things. You need to plan them on the Oregon side. He needs to plan them on the Ohio State side. And then just let forces be, let them be discovered prior to the game, and have everyone ruled ineligible.
Sorry, can't play. That'd be awesome. But
do you want to talk about a little bit about LeBron and the Cavs here and this whole little scapegoat fest that's going on in Cleveland?
Yeah, man, they're already putting a lot of pressure on David Blatt, not reaching the team, and now LeBron's out for a couple of weeks with knee and back soreness. Kevin Love's been out the past few games. And I think that LeBron completely underestimated what he was walking into going back to Cleveland. I think he'd been playing with adults the past few years, and he thought he could translate that to a group of kids who've never once played in a meaningful basketball game of their lives. And he's he is finding it to be way more frustrating and difficult than he could ever imagined. I mean, he blatantly disregards David Blatt's offense. He calls all the plays. He's the GM of the team. He's basically the president of basketball operations. He's running the entire show there, and it's not going well as of now. Um, losing Varejao definitely doesn't help. They've been banged up. LeBron's played an insane amount of basketball the last 4 or 5 years, and it's not going too well. I mean, and this happened when he got to Miami and all that sort of stuff, but that had a different vibe than this. So I'm not quite sure. I mean, because him and Spoelstra didn't get off to the greatest start, but also Spoelstra 100% had Pat Riley's backing. I don't think there was a universe in which Pat Riley wasn't going to support Eric Spoelstra. And Pat Riley was also, you know, he's in charge of the Heat. Everyone knows who's in charge. In Cleveland, LeBron's in charge. There's no Pat Riley there, type personality to keep that in check a little bit. Cleveland was like, yeah, come here, have whatever you want. We'll do whatever. And so I don't know. Do you see them rebounding this year from this stretch, or do you think this is going to be a lost year for them?
I mean, I think both of us. I don't think either one of us would be surprised that Varejao got hurt. I think that was just, it was not a matter of if, it was a matter of when. And the thing, imagine if Cleveland had, because as you mentioned, the Heat thing had a different vibe to it, and that's because the Heat were playing defense. This Cavalier team, I mean, you got guys that, defense is more than just effort. I mean, effort's going to get you some places, but in the NBA, I mean, you have to completely buy into this. And you've got guys in Kyrie Irving, Deion Waiters, Kevin Love, who have never, ever prided themselves on playing defense. And, David Blatt, he's trying to figure out the rotations here, and he's going back and forth on what to do. He was starting Waiters, now Waiters is coming off the bench. It doesn't seem like he really has a good pulse on this team. But just imagine if the Cavaliers, instead of this guy who pouts every time he doesn't get the ball on the three-point line, and to Kevin Love's credit, they're not running a lot of post-up plays for him. They should probably run a little bit more of the offense through him in the post. But I think this is anyone who's watched him in Minnesota, when he doesn't get the ball, he clenches his fist, he pouts his face. I mean, he makes if you believe in body language, he flunks the body language test horribly. And just imagine if they had this crazy sick athletic 6'2" two guard who could defend either he could defend the 1 or the 2 or the 3, the other team's best player. And the guy will probably be the rookie of the year, but instead he's in Minnesota. You traded. LeBron wouldn't have to lock up the best player on the team. There could have been a guy like Andrew Wiggins who does that.
Yeah, it's really frustrating too, because the Cavs could have made this once Golden State backed out. The Cavs could have made this trade in February. They could have seen what they had with Wiggins. They could have seen what they actually needed, and they could have configured this team a little bit better. Instead, LeBron forced the issue very early on to make that trade. It was clear from the letter that it was already in the works, and I think it's really cost them now. And I think they're having some buyer's remorse because Kevin Love, he has not proven to be as effective as originally thought. I mean, I thought he was a little overrated coming from Minnesota, and the way that Kyrie's so ball dominant. I mean, LeBron obviously is the most ball dominant player in the league, Got Deion Waiters who wants to get his at all costs. And Kevin Love, man, he's not the biggest personality, and they just have him kicking it out at the 3-point line, and it's not gelling.
No, and that's one of the things that like you tend to forget when because basically in the NBA, I mean, every team's going to get 80. It doesn't matter how bad you are. You can be the Sixers, you're going to get 80 points. And someone's got to get those stats. And Kevin Love, I mean, camping out on the three-point line, not getting the rebounds. He's a just atrocious defender in the paint. And I mean, the Cavs are going to have to make a trade for somebody if they're going to do anything here in the playoffs. Because if that team matches up, like I mean, right now they're what, the 5th seed, and Chicago's the 4th seed.
Not a good matchup.
No, I mean, they could get the wrong matchup. I mean, if they get the Wizards or if they get the Bulls or even the Raptors in the first round, like they might not advance out of the first round. I'm not willing to go that far just yet, but you know,
I think if the Cavs aren't a top 4 seed, I don't think they make it out of the first round, as this team's configured right now.
you think David Blatt makes it the whole year?
Man. Yes, but there's going to be more stories, and if there's like a really bad stretch, then I don't think he'll survive that. But I think it'll be tough for Cleveland to fire a coach. That would add such a dynamic to the storyline that everything else could kind of implode around it because of it.
Well, Mike Brown's still available, you know.
Yeah,
Running back.
Paid.
No, but I mean, you made a great point about Spoelstra, and I mean, not only did Riley have his back, but Spoelstra, despite not being an NBA coach, he had NBA experience. I mean, the guy started off as a film room video coordinator for the Heat and worked his way up through the organization. I mean, David Blatt, the guy had been coaching in Israel his whole career. He had been known around Europe. These NBA guys have no idea who he is, and he doesn't. Like when you're in Europe, it's an entirely different dynamic. It's almost like coaching college versus coaching the pros. In college, the coach has all the power, and the pros, you better hope they buy in, because if they don't buy in, they're making more than you, and you are way more replaceable than they are.
Without a doubt. I mean, I think David Blatt's going to make a fantastic college coach in a year or two. But if he makes it through this year, and if the Cavs have an early playoff exit, there's no way he comes back next year.
Man, it's just so interesting to me because everyone in the media just thought it was going to be so easy. It was just going to be so easy. They got these all-stars. They got Kevin Love. And, like, people forget, like, Chris Bosh was Kevin Love, except he had gone to the playoffs. And, like, just ask Chris Bosh how hard it was. Because even when Chris Bosh, like, didn't give you numbers, like, he didn't score at all in Game 7, you know. But Chris Bosh will always give you defense. Kevin Love.
Man. Chris Bosh had heart on those teams. Like he went to 4 straight finals and only won 2 with that team. That shows you how tough it is. Like, how does this Cavalier team match up against the Warriors, Spurs, Rockets? Like, no way, man. No way.
And just imagine if LeBron had stayed on the Heat. I mean, they would easily be the #1 seed in the East right now. Easily.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they'd be right up there. I think, yeah, they'd be right up there. They'd be taking away, they'd be having approach it much like the Spurs would, I think, this year if that team was still intact because they played so many games. But, yeah, they'd be cruising, just getting ready. Everything would be focused on the playoffs. Nothing else would really matter to that team. And with this Cavs team, they're going to have to labor through the regular season.
Yeah. It's one thing to coast if you've been to 4 straight finals. It's another thing to coast when you've never played a playoff game.
Right? You got to learn. You got to learn what those moments are like. And, yeah, yeah, it's not working as of yet.
And the other interesting thing with LeBron, I mean, you mentioned how many minutes he's played. The guy just turned 30 a couple of days ago, and like this is a guy who could really prolong his career and reinvent himself as a four, and he just continues to camp out on the perimeter, and he wants to launch threes, and he wants to drive to the basket, but he just those minutes take a toll on you, and he's obvious he can be a very effective four as he's shown in Miami. And all he's got to do is look at how Tim Duncan has persevered, and obviously Duncan has a little more size, but dude, he develops. If he continued to work at that post game, he could most definitely limit the wear and tear on his body. Because it's not like in the East, he's not the. I mean, what are the big fours that he has to defend? I mean, Bosh.
Yeah, Bosh, Jefferson, who I think plays more 5 than 4 nowadays.
Yeah. Noah plays 4. He's going to be playing like Mirotic, Gibson. I mean, those aren't like big fours, and it's not like he's in the West where he's got to deal with Gasol, Randolph, Aldridge. I mean, it just seems like he's, I don't know, man. You can definitely see the wear and tear on his body, and him continuing to camp out and shoot and not have that explosion. Not a good look.
It'll be interesting to see him come back, after this couple-week rest and see how he looks. So, do we want to give the people some quick picks for the playoff games this weekend?
Sure. Why don't you give him yours while I pull it up?
I don't know the lines. Well, I think the Cowboys are -7 right now. But I mean, I like the Cowboys in that game straight up. I mean,
well, I'll pull up right now, and I'll just say that if any of you guys out there have significant others or families who think you've spent too much time watching the NFL, go do something with them on Saturday during the Panthers-Carolina game.
Yeah, you got Carolina hosting. Who are they hosting? Arizona.
Yeah, you got the Panthers as a 6-point favorite over Arizona. You got the Steelers as a 3-point favorite over the Ravens. The Colts are a 3.5-point favorite against the Bengals, and the Cowboys are a 7.5-point favorite against the Lions. And should mention the Lions and Ndamukong Suh, who was originally suspended, through the old. It was cold, so I didn't know what an ankle was versus the turf. Will play in that game.
Yeah, he will. I like the Cowboys. I think they've just got a lot of momentum. Matthew Stafford is 0-16 on the road against teams with a winning record.
That's not good, is it?
No, I don't think that's good. I think you could almost say that's the opposite of good.
That sounds like worse than Andy Dalton.
And, well, speaking of Andy Dalton, I like the Bengals. I don't think the Colts are any good. I think the Bengals win that game. I like the Steelers against the Ravens. I think they can go over the top on them. Panthers, they're going up against Ryan Lindley. And, Arizona's D will keep them in that game as long as humanly possible, but I just don't know how they score enough points with Lindley at quarterback.
Why did the Cardinals not call Tim Tebow? Like, are you going to really tell me that Ryan Lindley's a better quarterback than Tim Tebow? Anyone. I want someone to tell me that with a straight face.
I mean, I can't. Even though some of Tim Tebow, I don't know.
I would take concussed Kurt Warner over Ryan Lindley.
At least with Tebow, you just be like, just run the ball fucking 25 times, see what happens.
Line Patrick Peterson up at quarterback. I'm not joking.
Seriously, just put him back there, switch to a triple option for the week, and just roll the dice. Like you're not gonna win with Ryan Lindley. So might as well just try and do something crazy, catch him off guard.
No, and another part of the reason why I say if you have someone who thinks you've been spending too much time watching football, the over/under for the Cardinals-Panthers game is 38.
Oh my God.
38.
You have to take the over, right?
You have to take the over. God, it pains me just because I know how good Arizona's defense is, and when you look at the coaching advantage, obviously I like Bruce Arians a lot more than Riverboat Ron.
So much better.
But man, like the Carolina Panthers defense, even though they really haven't played the toughest schedule down the stretch, they have been a completely different defense since their bye. And you mentioned it, man. Ryan Lindley, and waiting in the wings is Logan Thomas, who
So bad.
anytime you get benched one practice in to the week you're supposed to start for Ryan Lindley, it's not a good sign.
We're pretty much like, if they, after a situation like that, if there was anyone else, they would have cut him. You know, you just like, bro, this isn't gonna work. See you never.
Keep getting them checks, guys. Just enjoy them while you can. I really hope you've made some solid investments, because I don't know how long this is going to continue for you after this year. The Steelers-Ravens game, man. No Le'Veon Bell for the Steelers. Ravens secondary is garbage. Joe Flacco has played absolutely horrible football over the past 2 weeks, and really screwed my my Week 7 bet of who was going to win the AFC North, which was the Ravens at plus 250. So thanks a lot, Joe Flacco, for blowing games against the Texans. God, you're awful. But yeah, they barely scored any points against the Jaguars. They barely scored any points against Connor Shaw and the Browns. I don't know, man. This just strikes me as that frustratingly stupid Ravens game. I'm just going to take the Steelers and the 3 points just because I hate myself. And
Yeah, the Steelers can still go over the top, though. Like,
they can. The Ravens secondary is terrible. But this game, I feel like the Ravens-Steelers games, for the most part, are generally close. And, well, like, whatever. I don't feel good about it. I'm probably just trying to put the reverse jinx on them, because I did do a sneaky Steelers at 16-1 bet to win the AFC. So I think I'm just trying to put the Masuda stink on it. And even though I just told you about it, that probably negates it. So that's my strategy.
solid.
Yeah, it's really scientific. There's a lot of math involved. I'm with you on the Cowboys. I don't think the Lions really. I mean, Calvin might get a little bit in this game, but I like the Cowboys to take that, and I'll give them the 7.5. I could easily see that being a 2-score game. The Bengals and the Colts. Is there any word on T.Y. Hilton? What his deal is?
Not that I've read or heard.
I'm guessing if they're still taking bets on this, that Hilton's expected to play. Any word on A.J. Green? Because I know he still needs to go through the concussion protocol. Last I checked, he still had yet to clear it.
I mean, it's just a concussion. They'll fake their way through it. He'll play.
It's true. It's not like he's a kicker from Baylor or anything. Man, God, the two teams I wanted to bet against the most in the playoffs were Jim Caldwell and then Andy Dalton, and they're playing each other, so this is really hard. Well, I got the Ravens. They're the underdog. Yeah, let's just have a Jeremy Hill game. Jeremy Hill and Gio Bernard just go ham. Oh, you know what? Absolutely, the Bengals are going to win. It's a 1 o'clock game. It's not an 8 o'clock game, so it's not prime time. Andy Dalton will be fine. Take the Bengals. We're really scientific on this show, man.
You're really hemming on through these picks.
God.
So, yeah, it should be an interesting little playoff weekends. So we got that. UFC 182 or 3 is this weekend. I think it's 82. Got John Jones versus Daniel Cormier. I highly suggest people go out and watch that fight. It's gonna be super fun. Yeah, it's a good little sports weekend.
It is, and hopefully by the end of it, LSU will have a new defensive coordinator, as John Chavis left following our loss to Notre Dame to become the defensive coordinator at Texas A&M. And word on the street is that Miles and Oliva have had an inclination that Chavis was gone as recently as the 22nd of December, which, if that's the case, there's no reason Chavis should have been anywhere near that game. Apparently, the big rift with this is that a couple weeks ago, all of Les Miles' assistants were offered new contracts because all their current ones were set to expire in March. And the sticking point with Chavis was there was a clause in his contract that if Les Miles were to retire or get fired, Chavis would only get paid half of the remaining amount of his contract instead of the full amount.
Why?
Again, that's a conversation that I wish I knew more about. And so what ended up happening is Chavis would not agree to this. He was the only one of these assistants who did not sign his extension. And so Oliva, apparently there's been Oliva wouldn't meet with Chavis personally. He was kind of sending assistants and in-betweens, and I guess that kind of rubbed Chavis the wrong way. And so Chavis got a new deal from Oliva, which was 1 year less with the full amount guaranteed. So instead of the 3-year contract, it was going to be a 2-year deal. And Chavis thought that was bogus. And so I think the writing was on the wall going into the bowl game. There were reports that came out the day of that Chavis was going to be going to Texas A&M. And the other interesting caveat about that was that the day of the game, had Chavis taken that A&M job, A&M would have owed LSU a $400,000 buyout. The next day, that buyout went to zero. And the next day is when he officially took the job. So there's a whole lot of I think, hurt feelings that have been going on between Chavis, and obviously a bit of a strained relationship between Chavis and Oliva. Personally, I'm not the biggest Oliva fan. I don't know if we've touched on my thoughts on how he's really he hasn't made. I mean, Johnny Jones is really the only coaching hire Oliva's made that the jury's still out on. His hire of a women's basketball coach, Nikki Caldwell, has been an unmitigated disaster. The women's basketball team is god-awful this year. She's making about $1.4 million. All he's done is really price out kind of the common LSU fan at Tiger Stadium. That's kind of the reason why the atmosphere is not what it used to be. You have a lot more doctors and lawyers in those season tickets as opposed to the people that grew up with a connection to the school and aren't just there because it's kind of something to do on a Saturday. So Oliva, and you can also look at what the guy did with the Duke lacrosse scandal, because he really went after the players and he was wrong. So Joe Oliva has never really been a favorite of mine. John Chavis, though, kind of handled this in a bit of a, really hurt 12-year-old, I'm going to hold a grudge type of deal. If you look at the way LSU's defense has been in some of our big games, we haven't been able to hold a late lead. We've given up late touchdown drives to Alabama in 2012, 2014. Ole Miss in 2013. The defensive line has not been that great. The biggest name that I'm hearing that is a likelihood is former Cal and USC defensive coordinator Clancy Pendergrass. I don't know if you have anything that you'd like to share on him, but he also coached for the Cardinals as their defensive coordinator when they went to the Super Bowl with Kurt Warner. But it's kind of
he's a 3-4 coordinator.
He is.
Which would be, I don't know how good of an idea that would be for LSU, but
no. And the thing with LSU is, a lot of these spread teams, obviously with the exception this year of the Mississippi State game, but we've been able to hang with these spread teams because we have fast linebackers, whereas you see Alabama struggles with these teams because Alabama's built to defend LSU and Arkansas. They're built to defend those teams. They're not built to defend Auburn, A&M, and those are the teams they struggle with, whereas LSU's defense is built to defend them and has had success against them. This year, obviously, if Rick Haley, who was our defensive line coach, elects to move on either with Chavis to Texas A&M or to Mississippi State as their defensive coordinator, which, hey, Dan Mullen, if you want Rick Haley as your defensive coordinator, please take him. Our defensive line has really underachieved the past few years while he's been here. Then word on the street is that Coach Ed Orgeron, will come in as defensive coordinator. Or not defensive coordinator, sorry, defensive line coach.
Oh, that'd be so sick.
Dude, Coach O and Frank Wilson as your two recruiting gurus. Oh my gosh, I think it moved.
Yeah, dude. That'd be sick. That'd be big news. So, and the rich get richer.
But at the end of the day, we have the 114th ranked quarterback in Division One.
Sick. So good.
Don't you guys have like a JUCO you could throw our way?
Yeah, we have like 7 scholarship quarterbacks right now. It's stupid.
I just want everyone to know that I'm begging for an Oregon State JUCO quarterback. That's where I'm at. That's where I'm at in my life with the LSU quarterbacks.
Oh, man. Well, yeah. We probably have a backup that's better. It's true.
Oh, no, you do. You probably have 3. Give me one. Please.
You can have Luke Del Rio.
Sure. Do you have any eligibility left? I'll take you. I'm talking about Scott. Like,
yeah, I can throw the ball onto the ground repeatedly. Trust me. Like, I can do that. So, anyways. All right, man. Well, I gotta get a move on to work, unfortunately.
Well, hope you had a happy New Year, and I'm glad to hear that the Florida possibility is still on because you did not go to bed with Rich Rod.
I definitely did not. Thankfully, I stayed away, and doesn't mean I didn't not lose money on all the other bowl games, but still, yeah, things are afoot. I'll leave it at that. So, yeah, until next time, I'm at the Scotty C Show.
I'm at Rye_Guy, and you can catch all of our podcasts at h3cruising.wordpress.com. And, yeah, hit up Scotty C on Twitter. Give him some ideas on how he can make Oregon and Ohio State a tie that can never be played out.
You're right. Any ideas will be helpful because I have zilch. So, Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.